Hey everybody. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Comfort and Joy with Lady Curry. So, for those of you who do not know, July is the month that is set aside to celebrate culinary arts. And that is the efforts and the beautiful dishes and talents and creative dishes that chefs and bakers, home cooks and all bring to various tables, your home tables, restaurant tables, and lunch cafeterias. Anybody who dishes out food for people to enjoy, you can consider yourself included in this celebration. So with that being said, July is the set aside month. I was going to do my own homage to culinary arts month. So I chose to do my chocolate cake, my decadent chocolate cake. But you know what? Because it's culinary arts month, I'm going to put my spin on it, and I'm going to also add a sweet treat in between my layers. How about that? So I want to bring you guys along with me, and we're going to get started. So what I want to do is just break down what I'm going to do, and then through the magic of editing, we're going to go step by step, and I'm going to show you how my delectable cake is accomplished. So let me first start by just showing you all of the tools and the ingredients that I have laid out for you. So of course, you know I have my trusty handy dandy KitchenAid Ultra Power mixer. I never bake without this thing, let me tell you that. And so the recipe will call for 2 cake pans because it's a double layer cake. So I have these, I believe these are 9-inch cake pans. So we're gonna grease and flour these soon. So I'm gonna set these aside. I also have my measuring cups of various sizes, my measuring spoons. I'll need 1 or 2 of those. I have my sifter because we're going to sift, as you will see in a few minutes. And then I have my bowl to keep things separate. And then I also have my butter that you also want to leave room temperature. You want to leave that out, so you have to set that out to bring down to room temperature. You never want to do cold butter when you're baking cakes unless the recipe calls for it. But our recipe is going to call for butter for the frosting. So it's not going to go into the cake except to butter our pan, but this is going to go into our frosting. So then it also will call for baking soda, some salt. I just have some bowls here to separate my ingredients. I have some espresso powder. I have my baking chocolate here that I'm going to melt down. See that? Hope I don't drop everything. I have my Purée baking powder, my cocoa powder. This stuff is delish. I have my cup of buttermilk, 2 eggs, my vanilla extract, and my strawberry puree. And that's fresh strawberries. And then I have my flour and my sugar here. So I believe these are every ingredient, every tool that I will need to get this cake accomplished. Okay, let's see how I do it. Come on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dump all of our dry ingredients in our bowl that's going to be set aside. So let me take my cup, my 1 cup measuring cup, and I'm going to go ahead and measure out, what is this, 1 3/4 cups. So I'm going to measure out 1 3/4 cups of flour for this cake. And what I normally do, I always lighten my flour, even though I'm going to put it through the sifter. I just always lighten my flour. So I just go like this And then I will take this scoop and just loosely pack it in. Just let it fall in there. Tap it a little bit, and I'm going to just straighten up that edge. I'm just going to give it an edge, and then I'm going to dump it in here like that. Okay, so now I need 3/4 cups. So this is 1/4 measuring cup. This is a 1/4 measuring cup. So I'm going to do this 3 times. So same thing. So you got 1. You got 2. And then you have 3. Okay. So that's my 1 3/4 cup of flour. So then I can go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, so now it calls for my unsweetened cocoa powder. This is really good. And I also need 3/4 cups. So I don't want to make a mess here. So let me do this very carefully. And I'm not going to lighten this as much because it makes a mess. So I'm just going to tap it, and I'm going to just throw it in my sifter on top of my flour. And I am using unbleached flour, but you can use all-purpose flour. It doesn't matter. Your flour can be all-purpose or all-purpose unbleached flour. So bleached or unbleached, it doesn't matter. This is the second 1/4 cup going in. And then finally, the third. And I don't level off, I guess you could say, how I level off my flour. I don't level off my cocoa powder as much. I try to get it, you know, as close to the top as possible, but I don't level it off because, hey, more is more when you're talking about chocolate. Okay, so that's that. And let me set that aside. Okay, now the recipe also calls for 2 cups of sugar, and it's going to go right on top of my cocoa powder. So I'm going to grab my 1 cup measuring cup again, and I'm just going to go right ahead and dip in my big jar of granulated white sugar. And I'm going to pour that right on top. Okay. So then earlier when I showed you guys all of the tools, all of my measuring tools that I would need, I failed to mention that the recipe also calls for baking powder. So what I did, I went ahead and measured out 1 tablespoon of baking powder and 1 tablespoon of salt. So these 2 are in this small little measuring bowl here. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that right on top. And then I'm going to also go ahead and dump this right here is baking soda. And I'm going to go ahead and dump this on top as well. This is 1 3/4. 1 3/4 tablespoons of baking soda. And I have to go ahead and reference my recipe because those of you who are jotting it down, I want to make sure I give you guys the right measurement. Unfortunately, I've been making this cake for years and years, and I have not committed it to memory. I can make a pound cake in my sleep. This cake, however, I don't know why the measurements won't stick to my brain, but anyway. So we're going to go ahead and dump 1 3/4 baking soda. Okay, so we're done with all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and slide them to the side. They have played their role well. Let's give them a hand. Yes. All right, so we are finished with our sugar. We're going to slide her to the side and see it's starting to clear up. Now, we are going to also make a homemade icing or homemade frosting for this cake. And it requires melting chocolate. It requires butter, all that good stuff. It requires powdered sugar and like all kinds of good stuff. Coffee, espresso. So we're going to save that for later. That's going to be our next step later down in the story. So what we're going to do now is we are going to sift this through. Now what you can do is just go ahead and go like this, but what I like to do, which I forgot again, I like to also help work this through my sifter. I'm going to go ahead and get my whisk. This is another tool that is very helpful in the kitchen, and I like to just whisk it through. So you see that here? Let me see if I can tilt this and show you guys. I just like to work it through. See that? And because the cocoa powder is heavier, it's always the last to go. The granulated sugar and the flour fall so gracefully through the sieve, but the cocoa powder is weightier, so it's always the last to go. And then you'll find that you have these little granules left behind, and you can either try to push it through, and then I always discard big pieces. And I'm back. So what you have now is your dry mixture all ready to go, and I just like to go ahead and just keep whisking that, making sure everything is incorporated, because you want to make sure that you work through your baking soda, your baking powder, your salt, your sugar, your flour. You want to make sure all of that is evenly distributed through your mixture. So whisking or stirring it really, really well is key, because you don't want parts and patches of your cake not being developed properly. Okay, now we're going to set this aside, and what we're going to do is take our next measuring bowl, and we're going to add our wet ingredients to this as well. So we're going to go ahead and pour in our milk. We are going to go ahead and crack our eggs. The recipe calls for a half a cup of vegetable oil. And what I'm going to do is use the same cup that the milk was in, the buttermilk was in, because who has time to do 100 pieces of dishes, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just add a half a cup of vegetable oil. Here we go. And I'm gonna throw that in here along with my buttermilk. All right. And I'm gonna go ahead and set my vegetable oil aside. And then I'm gonna also add my eggs. So I'm gonna crack them. And I'm gonna crack them into this cup as well, because who wants a shell in their mixture? Not I. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack inside, just to ensure that I don't have to fish out any shells. It's always good to take precautions, just so you don't mess up your batter or any type of mixture that you are working with. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump my eggs right on in here as well. So we're finished with that, and I can set that aside as well. So now what I'm gonna do is add my flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my vanilla extract, and it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I like to be a little generous, so I'm gonna do 1.5 teaspoons, just to give it some good flavor. So I'm gonna also set that aside. All right, so now I'm gonna bring back out my whisk, and we're going to whisk this up. It's time for us to start on our dry mixture. We're going to combine our dry mixture with our wet ingredients. And then the secret ingredient also is 1 cup of freshly brewed coffee. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll come right back. Okay, and I am back. So you saw how I buttered and floured my 2 round cake pans. And so now we're about to get to assembling our cake batter. I'm going to gently mix my dry ingredients through again. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you are mixing your ingredients again. So I'm going to go ahead and lock my mixer in place, and I'm going to turn it on slowly. It's going to create some type of dust cloud, but you know, we can't get away from that. That's why it's important to mix it on low, the lowest setting possible. So now, while that's going on, while she's running, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slowly add my buttermilk, eggs, and vanilla extract and my oil mixture to this. Smells good, but it's smoky up in here. All right, so now while the mixture is running and it's wet now, our secret yummy ingredients is 1 cup of freshly brewed coffee. I'm going to go ahead and add this cup of coffee to my mixture while it's running. Let's hope I don't splatter all over the place. Ooh, it smells so heavenly. And coffee, if you didn't know, I know those that are in the culinary world know that coffee turbocharges, it enhances the flavor of chocolate. It does not bother. It really marries well with chocolate, just like chili goes well with chocolate. So if you wanted like a spiced chocolate, fall is coming up, you can spice up your chocolate with chili powder. It surprisingly goes well. It's the same thing with coffee. A lot of people may not think that, oh wow, why would you put coffee in your chocolate? I do that with my brownies. Anything chocolate, you can enhance it by using either liquid coffee or coffee powder, espresso powder. Instant, finely ground instant coffee will bump up your chocolate flavor and baking. So that's a culinary tip for you guys. Coffee is the key. So now, our mixture is ready. The batter is very loose. It's a very loose batter, but that's what's going to make for a nice, fluffy, moist cake. And let me see if I can get you a picture. See how it looks? See how loose? That's how it's supposed to look. Beautiful chocolate batter. So now we will, let me clear the decks here for a minute. We're going to take our cake pans. We're going to take each of our cake pans and we're going to pour the batter equally divided between the 2 cake pans. And then the magic is going to happen after these bake up and cool off. All right, let's go.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you.
These 2 cake pans filled with this beautiful velvety chocolate batter are now ready to go into a 350 degree preheated oven. So if I did not mention, always, now my pupils know that you always preheat your oven before you even start. So in your prep time, you want to go ahead, walk over to your oven and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. So then we're going to carefully walk these over to our oven and we're going to put them in.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la.
Okay guys, so let's see if our cakes are ready. So what I normally do is go in and just tap with clean hands, of course. And it's a little jiggly in the middle. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them hang out for just a few seconds more. But meanwhile, while we are waiting for the cakes to finish up, I'm gonna show you how to do a double boiler and how I melt my chocolate. So I'm gonna take 1 bar of my Valrhona and 1 bar of this Trader Joe's Fair Trades Belgian dark chocolate. I'm going to take these 2 bars, I'm going to break them up and put them in this pan. So what I do is fill the pot, a larger pot with water. Now don't fill it up all the way where the water will touch this bowl because you don't want your chocolate to burn or scorch. So I just have it filled up, not even an inch, about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches. And the bowl definitely does not touch the water. It clears it perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And let me flip you guys around so you can see what I'm going to do. Okay, so now I'm going to open up my chocolate. And I am going to go ahead and break this chocolate up to make our homemade frosting. See how, ooh, look at this chocolate. It's so nice and dark. Ooh, it smells fabulous. So it smells like it's going to give great flavor to our cake frosting. So I'm just going to go ahead, break up the chocolate. And you just want to break them up in good pieces where they will melt rapidly. You don't want your chocolate to take all day. So break them up in fairly small pieces where you'll give your chocolate a good start in melting, and it'll also melt uniformly. And do the same thing with our 2nd bar of chocolate. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up. Ooh, if you guys could smell what I'm smelling. It is, ooh, fabulous. Look at this dark chocolate. Oh, I love it. Break this up as well. Ooh, do I have hand strength? It's a little thicker, but that's okay. Okay. All right, so we are going to allow this to melt. Now, let me go ahead and check on my cakes. All right, now my cakes are done. I see them peeking at the top. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. As you can see, the cakes are done. I'm gonna allow them to cool. I'm gonna flip them out on a cake cooling rack and set them aside and allow our homemade frosting to come together. When the cakes are completely cool, we're gonna move into our next phase. Okay guys, we are coming to the final steps of our cake assembly. So the first thing I do is I have my sticks of butter. The recipe calls for 2 sticks of softened butter. So you just bring them down to room temperature, just bring it out of your refrigerator, and that morning let it hang out until you make your cake, and it should be nice and soft and fluffy. So we're gonna go ahead and we dump these in already. So I'm going to take out my measuring spoons again, and I'm going to use the 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. And I'm gonna go ahead and put just a little bit. I'm gonna be a little bit light on this espresso. I'm gonna do a little less than 1 teaspoon. So I'm gonna do, because it's really strong. It's strong. So about, maybe I should even do a 1/2 teaspoon, but okay. So I'm gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon. I'm gonna throw that in there. And this time I'm not going to use my KitchenAid mixer. I have my handheld mixer. So I have my handheld mixer. I have 1 beater attached. I normally, like, you can use 2, but I like to use just 1 beater so I can get in there and work it in. It just, for me, works better. So now our butter and our espresso powder is mixed nicely together. It's nice and creamed. So now I'm going to go ahead and slowly add my powdered sugar, a 1/2 cup to a cup at a time, to my mixture. I'm going to also add a teaspoon of vanilla extract as well. And we're going to go for our 2nd cup of sugar. Dump that right on top and continue to mix. We're getting there. Let me wash my hands real quick. Okay. A little less than 1 cup went in, about 3/4 cup went in. So now it's time to add our melted chocolate. It's cooled down, and you want to make sure that you're working with cooled chocolate because you don't want it to melt your butter, right? All right, so we're gonna, look at that. I'm gonna mix that all in. All right, and we're done. Now what you could do is you could add like a teaspoon, if that, of milk or something if you want it more velvety. But I think I'm okay with my mixture as long as it spreads. Yeah, it's spreadable. I'm doing my test just to make sure that it's spreadable and I don't tear my cake up. All right, guys, so now we are at the phase where we will icing our cakes. So each layer of cake gets some nice icing, and we also will add some fresh strawberry puree on the bottom layer and nestle it in between the bottom and top layer. So, okay, let's see how this will work. I'm gonna start with one layer is a little thicker. So I think that one will be the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this out. Always start with clean hands. I just washed my hands for like the 10,000th time. And I'm going to, that came off clean enough. And I'm going to lay this, I don't know if I should lay, yeah, I guess I'll lay it on the flat side. And lay it down in the middle of your cake pad. And this is the little lady's favorite cake that I bake of hers. So she's not gonna want this cake to leave the house, but this cake is leaving the house. After today, she might have a piece, the hubby might have a piece, and I'm gonna have a piece, but we are sending this cake out of this house. So let's get started. what you want to do is make sure you have enough icing. I know this seems like it's extreme, but you want to make sure that you have enough icing because you don't want your spatula to touch the actual cake, because that's when you'll get your cake to be ripped up and you'll also get crumbs in your icing. So what you want to do, and I have a turntable here, you see this? You don't need all of this. You can spin your cake plate or pad around if you need to, but I'm a baker, so that's what I do. So what I'm doing here is just spreading my icing out to the edges of my cake, and I'm going around, and I'm taking care not to break through the layer of my icing where the cake might come through and I might touch it with my spatula. And you see how like all of that icing is now being thinned out. So I'm gonna go ahead, keep on doing this. I'm gonna work it to the edge of my cake. Taking care not to let your spatula touch your cake. Don't let the spatula touch your cake, because that's when you'll get ripping, and you don't want any crumbs in your icing. So now that I have this layer on, I was struggling for a minute because I believe I put a little bit too much puree, which caused my cake to shift. But now that I have anchored it and cemented it with my icing, I hope it's not jiggling too much. And I'm going to go ahead and set it in my refrigerator also so it can set and kind of firm up. But let me show you the progress. So here is the progress of my cake, and I am just now cleaning it up and making it look pretty and just going over patches that need my attention and things like that. So I just want to even it out and make sure it is doing what it's supposed to do. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just go in and make it pretty. Okay guys, so this is the final result of my chocolate strawberry puree cake. And this is my homage to Culinary Arts Week. So I hope and pray that you guys have had fun with me today, that you will try this recipe out. Your family and friends will thank you for it. You'll thank me later. You're welcome. So yes, so I hope and pray that you guys enjoy Culinary Arts Month. Try your hand at something. Try your hand at baking or cooking a dish that maybe you've never tried before. I know I'm going to. But hats off to all of our chefs out there, all of our bakers out there, all of our home cooks out there and even those who are just trying. So happy Culinary Arts Month to you all. And as always, I'm wishing you comfort and joy from my heart and kitchen to yours. Happy eating. Hope I don't drop it.